And it's insane, yes, my lyrics aren't the cleanest, but fuck it, cuz I do what I like. 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 I do what I want.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the MikeyT MMA show. You know, we got the MikeyT Pro Wrestling podcast that just dropped our first video last week as well. I'm really excited about. But man, after this card this weekend, UFC 250, I had a lot to say. I was hoping my buddy Frames could hop on, but he's got plans tonight. So I think I'm going to ride this one out solo. I'm going to make it a shorter video, hopefully closer to 30 minutes. I know when I do these hour-long videos, it's kind of hard for my followers to, get invested into an hour-long video, but I think 30 minutes would be a much more appropriate, reasonable time frame to, at least, check out whatever you were most interested in the card. But, this was a great card top to bottom. I don't want to get into too much detail about the undercard, but I have a lot to say about the main card and even some of the undercard fights. I was very impressed with a lot of the guys. But before I start this, obviously it's been a few days now. If you don't want any spoilers, go ahead and check out right now. We're gonna start starting 3, 2, 1. If you don't want spoilers, get out now. But before I get started, thank you guys for coming. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for all the support on the YouTube page, the Facebook page. It would really mean a lot if you guys would like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. That stuff goes a long way for me and my channel and just helping it grow. And like I said, I appreciate each and every one of you. Feel no pressure. But if you want to support the cause, a like, a share, subscribe, comment, any of that stuff, it goes a long way for me, and I really appreciate each one and every one of you checking in. But yeah, I like I said, I don't want to take up too much time tonight. I'm just going to kind of get right into it. UFC 250 headlined by Amanda Nunes against Felicia Spencer. We had a great main card, but I'll kind of go through some of the main or undercard. There were some very impressive performances on the early prelims, so I want to go ahead and talk about that. Herbert Burns defeats Evan Dunham at round 1 minute and 20 seconds into the fight, submission rear naked choke. I was very, very impressed with Herbert Burns, and if you guys don't know, he's the brother of Gilbert Burns, who they just announced today will be fighting Kamaru Usman in the I wanted to say that might be the main event of they announced today that Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns will be on the card at UFC 251 on Fight Island. They announced it's going to be, I can't remember the exact location, but it's in Abu Dhabi. So kind of strange how they described it as Fight Island, but in reality it's more like Fight Peninsula. If you look at it geographically on the map, city looks beautiful, don't get me wrong, and I'm really excited to see. They say that they're going to have an octagon on the beach. I saw some really great pictures of what the setup's going to look like when it all comes together. When is that card? Let's see. UFC 251. Give me a sec. Okay, so according to Wikipedia, not always the most reliable source, the main event will be Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. That is going to be on July 12th, UFC Fight Island, Yas Island in Abu Dhabi, UAE, United Arab Emirates. So, like I said, Herbert Burns is the younger brother of Gilbert Burns, who also was coming off a really impressive performance over Tyron Woodley. I didn't make a video of that fight card just because it was a decent card. I was kind of waiting. I'm trying to get back into these pay-per-views because I know that's where I get most of my fan viewership from. I'll start doing fight nights again if you guys want me to. Honestly, just watching Tyron Woodley just come out and just drop the ball once again. I just hate it for him because I was always a big Woodley fan. there were guys, a lot of haters out there on Woodley throughout his fight career. And I mean, as such a big fan of his, I started to see the slow decline. I mean, even in the, ever since he knocked out Robbie Lawler, it seemed like the slow decline began. The best way I can describe it is in the Wonderboy fight. We saw it more prevalent in the Wonderboy 2 fight, but even in the Wonderboy 1 fight up until the 4th round when he obviously almost got the finish, it seemed like to me, the best way I could describe it was he was almost fighting not to lose, if that makes sense. So let me break that down. So the way I looked at it was Woodley, when Woodley fought Lawler, when Woodley was at his best, he was the one, coming in with the big right hand. He's got that very similar to what he did against Darren Till, which I think was the best performance of his championship reign. But he does the cockback overhand, which is how he knocked out Robbie Lawler. Or not cockback, pullback, and knocked out Robbie Lawler. Ever since then, the first 3 rounds of the first Wonderboy fight, his first title defense, which ended up being a draw, and I think it was a fair draw, but you saw that Woodley had a tendency to fight on his back foot. He was being the one that was getting pushed up against the cage. And I understand that to an extent because Wonderboy is a guy who provides an exceptional kickboxing game. I mean, if you want to be honest, he fought a perfect fight. He let Wonderboy get his shots in. I don't want to say a perfect fight. He fought a very smart fight because he knew that if he tried to exchange with Wonderboy in the same way that he exchanged with Lawler, Wonderboy would pick him apart all night. I mean, he got a big takedown in round 1 of that fight, landed some big elbows. I think he might have busted him up. But after that, rounds 2, 3, even into 4, until Woodley ended up catching him, Wonderboy was dominating because Woodley was on his back foot. He was trying to play smart. He was, in my opinion, fighting not to lose in these rounds, which is something that we saw going forward with him. And I promise I'm going to get to this main card. I just want to get my thoughts out on Woodley since I didn't make a video on it. Obviously, he landed the big shots in the 4th. He had the guillotine, which, oh my goodness, how tough is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson? To get out of that guillotine, to get dropped 3 times in a row, and I'm not sure if it was a 3 or 2, but he really had him close to being out of there. And then that guillotine was so tight, and I think the only thing, from my amateur knowledge that I have, the only reason that Wonderboy was able to get out of that submission is because he's got a tiny head, he's got a tiny neck, and I mean, Woodley was squeezing as hard as he could, and I mean, he kind of gassed out his arms, and Wonderboy was eventually able, I don't know if he slippered out or slippered, what's the right word? Got out because his head and his neck was so small, but he ended up on the 4th round on top, and then came back and won the 5th round, which is amazing. And then in the rematch, boring fight, all the way until the end, and then in the last 30 seconds of the fight, Woodley knocks him down, almost finishes him, I think drops him again. But in that fight, it seemed like he was once again fighting not to lose because, I mean, he saw that Wonderboy was really close to outpointing him that whole fight, and, I think that really set the stage for the Damian Maia fight. It was not a great performance against Maia, but once again, against Maia, he was fighting not to lose. He was always back up against the fence. He was letting Maia pressure him. He fought a smart game plan in the sense that he did what he had to do to win, but this is why the fans didn't like him. I thought the best performance of his career, of his title reign, was against Darren Till. I mean, that was not only did he receive his black belt that night for choking out Darren Till, but also he fought the perfect game plan. Darren Till came out and did not throw a single punch almost the entire first round, didn't really land a punch. And then I think it was at the beginning of the 2nd round, Till kind of set up for that pullback left that he throws, and how did I describe it? Woodley hit the pullback overhand right and just floored him, and then I just mean vicious elbows, both sides, downward elbows. Well, maybe not the 12-6, but he was definitely coming in at an angle, and had his face bloodied up. And then obviously, great performance. He got his black belt, choked him out with the Darce. Very impressive. However, I mean, we just saw in the Usman fight, he got beat at his own game, man. I mean, if Woodley was able to fight like Usman, I really think he would have won that fight. But instead, he decided to let Usman dictate the pace, and he let Usman put him up back against the fence. And because of that, I think the demoralizing nature of that loss. I mean, to get just completely destroyed against a guy that was talking crap to you, that you said that you were going to do to him what he did to you, and for you to just, I mean, even have the realization that you didn't show up in that fight, and to come back against a guy like Gilbert Burns, who, I picked Gilbert Burns, because, I didn't think Woodley he had said he was going to take fights, and then would drop out, and I don't know if it was an injury. I know he had a shoulder thing. He's had several shoulder injuries. I'm sure he's had several other injuries that we just don't know about because, he's just such a tough cat. I think he even mentioned he came into that fight with an injury against Burns, but, Burns was just able, not only did he outstrike him, dropped him several times in the fight, but he did the same thing. He had Woodley on his back foot the whole time. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my range right. I'm a lefty. Woodley's a righty, so he was, trying to cock back that right hand, and he landed a few good ones. And shout out to Burns for able to take those. Took him like a champ. But besides that, Burns was able to take him down. He was able to hold him down. It was like it was very similar to the Usman fight in the sense that it was a fish out of water. So I'm very excited to see that Gilbert Burns, Kamaru Usman, what appears to be the main event of UFC 251 on Fight Island. Also, they announced today Piotr Jan versus Jose Aldo for the vacant bantamweight title. I think that should be third from the top, and then I think the co-main event they also announced today was the Alexander Volkanovski Max Holloway rematch. And as a Max Holloway fan, I'm big scared about that after the performance that Volkanovski put on him. But we'll save that video for another day. I just kind of wanted to segue that into how impressed I was with Herbert Burns with a big step up in competition against Evan Dunham. And he got him out of there in 1 minute and 20 seconds with a rear naked choke against a guy, Evan Dunham, who is no slouch of a grappler. I was also very impressed with Devin Clark defeating Alonzo Menifield. Menifield, I believe is his name. Alonzo Menifield is a guy, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with him, but he came from Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series, I believe. He was 9-0 at the time. He was knocking guys out. I think his average fight time was all under a round. I think most of his first 9 wins were first-round knockouts. And he's fighting a guy in Devin Clark who came in with a record of 11-4, but he only had 3 knockout wins, 1 submission win, and 8 decisions. So he was mostly a guy winning by decision, and he did win this fight by decision, but there were times early in the fight where Menifield was landing the big shots that we expected him to land, and he busted up Devin Clark's eye early, and it was to the point that it was swollen shut, like he was a one-eyed fighter after the first round. And you hear, I can't remember his dad's name, but one of the interesting things I heard from the Rogan and DC on commentary was that his dad was in his corner, and then Ariel Helwani later tweeted that his dad's job was not to be a quote-unquote quarterman who comes in there and gives you instructional direction as to how to approach the fight round by round, going forward, adjustments that need to be made. He was literally in there, his dad was literally in there to just hype him up. In the empty arena at the Apex facility, you can hear everything, and we'll get to some of the sounds that we heard later in this night. But the main thing I took from this, for me, was his dad was just in there screaming his butt off, and he told us, Devin, he said, "Look, son, you're in a fight." This is a guy, Devin Clark, who's admitted to never being in a street fight, and when you heard his dad scream, "Devin, it's time to fight this MFer," you saw Devin turn it around, and Devin started landing the heavy shots on Menifield. And once Menifield had kind of blown his wad in the first round, it was all downhill from there. I mean, I think Devin had a hard time taking him down. However, you know, he landed the bigger shots. He got the decision, all 3 30-27 from the judges' scorecard. Very impressive. We're going to just kind of get through these prelims real quick. Alex Perez, second TKO by leg kicks in 2 weeks, defeating Juicy Formiga TKO by leg kicks in round 1 at 4 minutes and 6 seconds. I cannot remember the gentleman from the last week's card. I think it was Gutierrez, maybe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Leave a comment below if you know. But yeah, it's impressive performance against a guy in Juicy Formiga who is a perennial top 10, top 5 guy at flyweight. So I think Alex Perez is definitely a guy to watch at flyweight. You know, we got Benavidez and Figueiredo running it back for obvious reasons that I won't get into tonight, but yeah, we'll just keep going through a few ones. The guy I was most impressed with on the undercard was Cody Stamann defeating Brian Kelleher. Brian Kelleher, tough as nails. He lost. Cody Stamann wins 30-27 from all 3 judges. But man, if you guys didn't know, Cody Stamann lost his younger brother, I believe the week before the fight. The family hadn't even really had the funeral arrangements from what I understood. They were going to wait until after, let Cody get through the fight and then, you know, begin their grieving. But I think the way Cody looked at it was his brother would not want him to drop out of the fight. Basically, his brother wanted him to fight. Whether he was here or whether he was not, I think, you know, in his honor, I felt Cody thought that's what he had to do, and I thought he handled himself with class. Not only did he dominate Brian Kelleher, who was one of the toughest guys at Is he fighting? This fight was at featherweight? Yeah, okay, so this was Stamann's first fight at featherweight. He was actually a bantamweight. I don't know if his last fight, but he was the gentleman who got hit with the banana split submission against Aljamain Sterling, who we'll talk about later in the card as well. And I'm not sure if this was his first fight back, but I mean, what a hell of a first fight back if it was, especially given the circumstance. I was always a Brian Kelleher fan, but I'll be a Cody Stamann fan for life after that. Mad respect to that guy, and prayers to his family, and I hope they get through this terrible time. Just prayers to y'all. Next up, we got Ian Heinisch defeating Gerald Meerschaert, TKO via punches at 1 minute and 14 seconds of round 1. Not a lot to say here. Kind of a mismatch. Heinisch just came out and I believe it was a big right hand that put Meerschaert down. Meerschaert's been known to be a little chinny. I'm not sure where Heinisch or Meerschaert, for that sake, really fit in this middleweight division. I think Heinisch was ranked. So, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe Heinisch is turning around shortly to take and also comments, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he's taking on Brandon Allen, if I'm not mistaken, who's a teammate of Gerald Meerschaert, and I know they got a little beef. Obviously, after you knock out a teammate, your other teammate's going to want to come back and, you know, give you a piece of what he thought that Gerald was going to give you, you know. So, mad respect for Heinisch for turning around. Definitely looking forward to that fight. A fight I was disappointed in as a as a Chase Hooper fan. I realized very quickly that there are levels to this game, and sometimes I have to, you know, catch myself. And we'll talk about this in the third fight from the top as well. But sometimes I get caught up in the young up and coming guy with a lot of hype. Chase Hooper, Ben Askren's son, if you know what I'm talking about, defeated by Alex Caceres, 30-27, 30-27, 30-27. Yeah, it was pretty much domination. Alex Caceres is a veteran. He's fought Uriah Faber. For a guy who's only, let's take a look at his record real quick. I mean, I promise we'll get to the main event and get out of here quickly, but let's just look at the guys that Alex Caceres has fought. I mean, he only has a record of 16-12, but his first UFC fight was when he was at 5-3 and lost 2 fights. So he lost 2 fights in a row to start his UFC career, but since then he fought Damasio Page, who is a guy that I actually saw fight, or I didn't see fight live, but I saw him fight one of the big coaches here at Memphis Judo and Jiu-Jitsu, Brian the Law Hall, also a local police officer. So I have a lot of respect for what he's doing as an African American police officer right now. I know it's got to be tough for him. Interested to talk to that guy and see, what kind of changes he wants to see in place. I'm actually not even sure if he still works for the police office. But yeah, I'm not sure. I highly doubt he watches this, but I might reach out to him on Twitter and try to get some insight, maybe even just like a quick interview over the phone or something, and just jot some notes down, see where he's at on that. But yeah, Damasio Page was someone I was always a fan of after seeing, because I know how tough Brian the Law Hall is, and to see what he did, to see what Damasio Page did to him, I'll always be a fan of that guy for that. So that was in his fifth fight. That was huge step up in competition. Since then, he's fought Sergio Pettis, Uriah Fabers, Francisco Rivera, Cole Mira, Yair Rodriguez, Jason Knight, Crone Gracie, and I mean, dude, that's for a guy with a 16-12 record. I mean, that is crazy. He had wins over Cole Miller. He submitted Sergio Pettis, which was huge because this is when Pettis was, the next big thing. But what I'm getting at as far as the Caceres and Hooper fight, the main thing I took away from it is obviously there's levels to this game. Hooper has a lot of work to do, but with that being said, that guy is tough as nails. I couldn't believe some of the shots he was able to take in this fight, and he definitely made. I was already a fan. I think I'm an even bigger fan in his loss. I think the kid's 18 or 19 years old. Like, he's the youngest fighter. Maybe he's 20, but he's definitely the youngest fighter in the UFC. He's got a lot of room to grow. And hold on, I'm gonna turn the AC off real quick. Should have done that before. My bad, guys. Just makes a lot of noise. We got funky noises in this house. But like I said, we're going to get into the main card. And O'Malley, to quote the great Snoop Dogg on Sean O'Malley's first appearance on the Tuesday Night Contender Series. Sean O'Malley defeats Eddie Wineland KO via one punch, I may add. 1 minute and 54 seconds into round number 1, and my goodness, the punch was so beautiful. I was like, man, there's no way this isn't going to be knockout of the night. I mean, I think O'Malley in the post-fight said, I deserve 100 G's for that. Unfortunately, we saw something in the co-main event that kind of had me to change my mind. Also, there were a lot of people that deserve bonuses tonight. I'll before I close the podcast, I'll definitely see who the bonus awards went to. I got it pulled up right here. But basically, so Eddie Wineland is a guy who is a former WEC champ, which was the organization that Faber, Cruz, all the lighter weights guys came from, and then the UFC bought them out, and that was how they started out their featherweight division, their bantamweight division, which ultimately led to the flyweight division. If it wasn't for WEC, we might not have ever gotten these lighter weight classes in the UFC. And I mean, with guys like Henry Cejudo, Dominic Cruz, TJ Dillashaw, Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, these are some of the greatest fighters of all time, in my opinion. And say what you will about Dillashaw, I understand, with his transgressions that have come across the past. How long ago has that been? 2 years? A year? He's eligible to fight, I think, beginning of next year. But man, I was blown away. Eddie Wineland was such a big step up in competition, and O'Malley made him look like he didn't even belong in there. He styled on him. He threw a wheel kick, got out of the way, threw a little left hook. Had Wineland backing up against the fence, and then the way that he threw this right hand, it wasn't straight. It was more of an overhand. Not only did it land perfectly, the best way I could describe it, it was a walk-off KO, one punch, and it reminded me, and I don't want to, I'm not comparing him to McGregor, but the way that I saw it was how effortlessly he throws his body into these shots, how it seems like he's just, kind of just almost like he's not putting any effort into it. He's, obviously he's got his technique down, otherwise he wouldn't be able to hit that hard, but it just looks to me like a McGregor type punch in the sense that it looks so effortless, but you hear the sound, you see the reaction, you see Wineland go just completely limp. I mean, the only other time anybody's ever knocked out Wineland like that was Renan Barão, who hit him with the spinning side kick to the face. And, I mean, he didn't even go out cold from that. I mean, that guy is as tough as they come. This was a huge step up in competition. I'm very interested to see where O'Malley goes from here. I think he said he's looking to try to renegotiate his contract, and I heard DC and Helwani talking about this today. I really hope he goes about this the right way because he's still not top 15. No questions asked. He deserves a ranking next to his name ASAP, and I think he deserves a top 10 opponent. I think a guy like... even a guy like a Sunsao coming off a loss, or maybe even a Marlon Chito Vera if we want to be more conservative. But just guys in that tier that 10 to 15. Someone, Song Yadong, I think would be a great fight. I just hope he goes about his contract renegotiation tactics in the right way, because he still needs to realize his biggest win is Eddie Wineland. He's talking about he wants to fight. Or I've heard a lot of people saying they want to see him fight Cody Garbrandt. I think O'Malley even said he believes he can knock out Garbrandt, which I think I'd love to see that fight in 2 years. But right now, Garbrandt's the former champion. Garbrandt has fought everybody in the division. I mean, he's fought Thomas Almeida, Dominic Cruz, TJ Dillashaw twice, Sunsao, Pedro Munoz. I mean, Thomas Almeida, the list goes on and on and on when it comes to the experience that Garbrandt has. I think O'Malley needs that slow build. And I think I think the UFC's done a great job at it at this point. But man, I mean, just unbelievable performance. He did receive $50,000 for that, so shout out to him. Next fight, we'll kind of breeze through. Neil Magny defeats Anthony Rocco Martin. I was kind of surprised about this fight. It was the judges had 30-27, 30-27, and 29-28. I actually kind of disagreed with this card. I picked Anthony Rocco Martin to win, and if you go back and look at the rounds, they were very close. I do not think 30-27 for Magny was fair. I thought, if anything, it should have been a split decision, 29-28 one way, 29-28 the other two way, and I thought it was a toss-up. But I mean, in my opinion, I thought Rocco won. I won't spend a lot of time on that. Both guys looked impressive. I'm interested to see where they go from here. But man, talk about a performance of the night. The guy who came out here and made the biggest statement of the night. Aljamain Sterling defeats Corey Sandhagen at 1 minute, round one, 1 minute and 28 seconds, 1 minute and 28 seconds into round one, submission, rear naked choke. And let me tell you, it wasn't even close. I mean, for in the 1 minute and 30 seconds that that fight went on, Aljo dominated every single second of the fight. And I think another thing about this is this win could look really big in 2 years if Sandhagen is able to get back on track and regain his way back up and look like the way he was looking coming up. I could also see it going the other way where, maybe this was a case where he got to the top and, he realized he was just one step below the top. And I'm not saying that because I picked Sandhagen to win. I've been a big fan of Aljamain Sterling. He's got the look. He comes out with the chain. He does a lot of stuff right. He's got the personality. I mean, even I don't even know if I should say this, but just go look up the post-fight comments he made in the interview with Joe Rogan, and listen for the pause. He says pause, and you'll know what I'm talking about if you watch the fight. But I just think he's got the charisma, he's got the look. He is one of those guys from New York that can really, help connect to the urban community. You haven't seen somebody wear the chain around his neck since Rampage Jackson. And I mean, Rampage was one of the few guys that, was really able to connect with the urban community. And I think he could be that next big guy to help the UFC branch into that new market that Woodley and DC and Jones kind of started to get to the tip of the iceberg, but, really didn't make the big crossover that they wanted to. I just thought this was the best performance of the night. He also won 50 G's, so I hope him, Aljo, Merab, shout out to Merab as well. I think I just said, did I say Iaquinta or Aljo? It was in the car that I saw, they were going out to party, and it was Merab Dvalishvili, Ala Iaquinta, Aljo, and then a couple of their other coaches. I don't think Longo and Sarah were able to make it because I think they had some regional guys they had to look after that night. Or for whatever reason, they weren't able to come. Maybe it was because they were a little older and they didn't want to risk the COVID thing, which I mad respect. I mean, he had perfect guys in the corner and he put on a perfect game plan. Mad respect to that guy. I think there's an argument to be made that this should have been. I don't want to say that this should have been the vacant bantamweight title fight. I thought it would have been awesome if it was. Really, I think it should have been Aljamain Sterling and Jan. But the way I look at it is Aljamain Sterling versus Sandhagen. Obviously, Aljamain won. And then at Fight Island, UFC 251, we have Piotr Jan and Jose Aldo. And I think Jan's going to win the fight, but at the same time, if Aldo puts on a performance like he did against Moraes, I think Aljamain Sterling and Jose Aldo, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? That fight will be amazing. So I'd like to see it as like a four-way tournament play out. I'm going to get this video over real quick. I promise I would keep it under 30, but we're going to get through this real quick. My favorite, I'm sorry, Sean, but my favorite knockout of the night, Cody Garbrandt knocks out Rafael Assunção, KO via punch, 4 minutes and 59 and a half seconds into round number 2. And I mean, it almost could have been called 5 minutes at the end of round 2 because it was literally the punch lands at the bell. And in boxing, for example, when Juan Manuel Marquez knocked out, it was a very similar situation. Juan Manuel Marquez knocked out Manny Pacquiao, and he went face down right as the buzzer sounded. And when a fighter goes face down and they don't move, you can't be saved by the bell. So I fully respect the call by, I believe it was Keith Peterson or one of the gooder refs that the UFC has. But I mean, if I could just show you, like, I don't know how many of you guys watched the fight, but basically Cody came out with a great game plan. He was working his leg kicks. He did the thing where he drops his hand and does the spinning kick to like almost the lower calf, which I thought was a really, really great addition to his arsenal. But the main thing about his performance that I wanted to discuss was the fact that he came in, he was working with Mark Henry, obviously one of the more respected coaches in the game, and Mark Henry had him so prepared for this fight. He did not fight like the Cody Garbrandt that we saw in his last 3 fights. He was more measured. He did not get sucked into an ego contest with his fists like he always does. He was more patient. He picked his shots. But basically, for the knockout, let's see. How was it? So, he basically, he drops his hands. He sees the last 4 seconds of the fight. He sees Assunção approaching. He knows Assunção is going to come in for one last counter or one last lead. He posts off the fence, slips Assunção's punch, and just torques everything he has into the right hand. If you haven't seen it, I highly suggest you go check it out. Also won $50,000. Hats off to you, Cody Garbrandt. I was as a guy who didn't really like you earlier in your career. Just because of your attitude, and your just willingness to just stand there and trade. And, you know, I just thought you were a lot better than that. We all saw you were better than the Dominic Cruz fight. So hats off to you. My favorite knockout of the night. But, man, this main event with Amanda Nunes and Felicia Spencer. I won't even really get into it for much more than the fact that Amanda won every single second of the fight. I thought, honestly, it should have been a 50-43 all the way around. It ended up being 50-44, 50-44, 50-45. Do not agree with 50-45 at all. But, I mean, there was not a single moment in this fight where Felicia... Let me rephrase that. There was not a single moment in this fight where Amanda was in trouble. There was not a single moment in this fight where I thought Felicia was going to be able to escape with her life. But let me tell you, that chin and the resiliency of Felicia Spencer... I'm a fan for life. She's a really pretty girl. I think the biggest thing was after the fight, Amanda, and some people kind of saw it as a sign of disrespect. I didn't see it that way, and I didn't hear what was said, but it seemed like Amanda took her belt off immediately after the fight, placed it over Spencer's shoulder for about 15 seconds, let her hold it. And I believe she told her, like, look, I'm getting older. I'm about to have my first child. My wife is pregnant. You're going to be a champ one day. Because, I mean, if you look at it, starting from the top, Misha could not take the shots of Amanda. Holly could not take the shots of Amanda. Ronda Rousey could not take the shots of Amanda. Chris Cyborg could not take the shots of Amanda. I mean, even in the Durandamy fight, Amanda was fighting a world-class kickboxer, and she realized that she was kind of, not getting the better of the striking exchanges, so she just took her down over and over again. So, I mean, it's going to be a long time before we see someone with really a chance to beat Amanda Nunes, or just even put the fear in our mind that she might lose. And to be honest, this was a great card. I really hope that UFC 251, everybody's able to make it here safe. It seems like they're doing really good with the COVID testing. I loved the commentary. I believe it was Rogan, Anik, and DC. I think DC's the best in the game. I think Anik's the best in the game. I think Joe, for what he is the best in the game. I'm looking forward to hearing more from Michael Bisping. I love that guy. But man, I wanted to thank every single one of y'all. That's about all I got for tonight. My phone is about to die. I'm still recording off my phone. I'm still working on getting a webcam. Money's kind of tight right now until I go back to work, but we're gonna make it happen. I want to thank each and every one of y'all for coming out. If you don't mind, I really would appreciate it if you could like, comment, subscribe, send to your friends. I mean, anything helps. I mean, I just want to say I appreciate every single one of y'all. And like I like to finish it off here, thanks to my good friend Jacob Woloshin. MikeyT MMA has big dreams, so let's ride it out with Big Dreams by my friend Jacob Woloshin.
Big dreams, big dreams. I'm trying to make it, but I swear this shit isn't what it seems. Big dreams, big dreams. I'm trying to make it, but I swear this shit isn't what it seems. I was born in 93, I grew up in the suburbs, I went to Woodley. I was invested as a warrior, cast off like Tom Sawyer.
Peace, y'all. I'll see y'all next time.